In the 800-meter event, Uncle Sam's hope is John Woodruff, overtaking Phil Edwards of Canada, who is running his heart out, trying to match the withering pace of the husky Negro heavyweight who is running him into the ground.
There was very definitely a spatial feeling in winning the gold medal and being a black man. Here I was doing something, and particularly this particular event had not been won by an American in 24 years. So I was very happy for myself as an individual, for my race, and for my country.
To the latter stages of the 19th century, there were a large number of African American athletes who established not just a national reputation, but an international reputation for their athletic performances. Athletes such as Marshall Major Taylor, one of the great bicyclists in American history, Isaac Murphy, the first jockey ever to win 3 Kentucky Derbies, Moses Fleetwood Walker, who was the first African-American ever to play Major League Baseball when he signed with the Toledo Mud Hens in the mid-1880s. And what happens around the turn of the century, particularly by the last decade of the 19th century, because of a variety of different factors, including the Jim Crow laws and the black codes, the most famous being the Plessy versus Ferguson decision in 1896, you begin to have segregation. You saw African-American athletes being eliminated from predominantly white organized sport around the turn of the century.
This was still an era of segregation. But one of the things that had changed before the 1936 Olympics was the urbanization of African-Americans, moving to especially the urban north. They were able to go to high schools where there were sports teams, which wasn't available in the schools in the South, which barely had any facilities. That put them in a position where they could participate in sports, particularly in the individual sports like boxing, the track and field events. You had the legacy of Jack Johnson, the person who did succeed in boxing and became world champion, but didn't conform to the role that was assigned to black Americans. He was attacked, and ultimately his prestige and his money were taken away. That served as a lesson for subsequent generations of black athletes, that you can have power in the society to a certain degree, but you have to be very careful how you exercise it.
The fact of the matter was that blacks were being kept out of baseball, they were being kept out of football, and although I'm not sure how many people really believe this, one of the arguments was that, well, they might be faster, they might be stronger, but they don't play the game smart. All of these, ridiculous lies, but they were widely accepted. In track and field, unlike in team sports, you could measure performance empirically. Jesse Owens is running a 9.9 100 yards. He's just faster than any white man on the planet, and you can't argue against that, and it would be foolish to try to argue it. On May 25th, 1935, in Ann Arbor, Michigan, at the Big Ten track meet, he sets world records in 4 events in the space of less than an hour. This is all with an injury. He'd suffered a back injury horsing around with some of his fraternity brothers the week before. And all of a sudden, he is America's greatest hope for the Berlin Olympics.
Jesse Owens and Ralph Metcalfe were definitely heroes in the black community. Even though they might have limitations in terms of training and resources and all of these sorts of things, once they were able to compete, they were able to do it, and they were able to do it well. There was much more ambivalence in the black community over whether to participate or not in the 1936 Olympics. Americans were painting the Nazis as super racists. We had our own experience with racism at home, and it was hard to imagine something worse than Jim Crow in the South. That notion of American democracy versus Nazism was blurred a bit for African Americans. I think that in the end it came down to there was going to be U.S. participation in the Olympics, and there were some talented black athletes who wanted to go. Even if the black press had been totally opposed to going, they wouldn't have been able to influence the decision anyway. The individual athletes made their own decisions, and they wanted to go.
When we went to the Olympics, we weren't interested in politics. We were only interested in going to Germany, participating in our events and trying to win as many gold medals as we could win, see, and come home. That was our interest. I made the team when I was 20, and before I got to Berlin, Germany, I had a birthday, and I was 21. So we were young. All of us were young. The opening ceremony is when all these Olympic athletes representing all these various nations march in. We came in with our white trousers, blue jackets, and straw hats with a red, white, and blue band. And of course, right after they march in and the games are declared open, they release all these pigeons and they all fly. And that's the opening of the games.